In this video, we're going to talk about having one pistol that can shoot 3 different cartridges, effectively making it ammo shortage proof. And that's exactly what I've done with the SIG Sauer P226 you see here sitting on the workbench. This started life as a law enforcement trade-in pistol that I got for less than 500 bucks, but it was chambered in 40 Smith & Wesson. But now I've set it up so it can shoot 40 Smith & Wesson, 357 SIG, and 9mm Luger all out of one gun. So I'm going to show you what I had to do in order to make the pistol be able to do that, including swapping out some small parts that was very easy to do. I'm going to show you the accuracy differences of shooting those 3 different cartridges out of the same gun, which was originally set up for 40 Smith & Wesson and has sights for 40 Smith & Wesson. And we're going to talk about some potential issues you might run into while running what's called a 9mm conversion barrel, which is what you'll need if you want to shoot 9mm out of a 40 Smith & Wesson or 357 SIG pistol. And you unfortunately cannot take a 9mm pistol and move up to 40 or 357 SIG. So if you want to do this, you can do it with a lot of different guns. A Glock 22 or 31, you can do it with an HK USP 40, a Beretta 96, but you have to ensure that those guns start life as a 40 Smith & Wesson or 357 SIG pistol, and that they also then have an aftermarket 9mm conversion barrel available. And if you have all those things set up correctly, you can get a pistol that can shoot all 3 cartridges. And we all know during the last ammo shortage that 40 Smith & Wesson was still on the shelf, but it's still nice to have a gun that can shoot a couple other calibers just in case things go wrong. So before we jump into it, I want to mention that Midway USA is the biggest supporter of the channel. And thanks to them, I can give you information like this and give you some ideas about how you can deal with your firearms regarding a preparedness situation and how to have them set up for the long term. So a big thanks to Midway USA for supporting what I do and for having a lot of the stuff you might need, especially if you're shooting 3 different cartridges. So let's get into what we have to do to make this pistol shoot all 3 of these cartridges, and we'll talk about everything else as well. First up is 40 Smith & Wesson, which is how the gun came from the factory. And just to demonstrate really quickly, go ahead and field strip it. You can see here, we've got the 40 Smith & Wesson barrel in there with the 40 Smith & Wesson recoil spring. So we'll take it out to the range just to test out accuracy and reliability. And then we'll go ahead and convert it to 357 SIG. No, this isn't the PSR channel, but it is very cold in the negatives, but we're doing it anyway. So right now we have the P226 set up with 40 Smith & Wesson, and we're just going to shoot it. I'm going to aim at the same target for all three cartridges so that we can see if there's any difference because of the sight height and everything else that's expected for 40 Smith & Wesson versus 9mm or 357 SIG. And I just want to show that each barrel configuration is still reliable. So we'll start with the 40 Smith & Wesson. It's a full 12-round magazine, and we'll do the same with 357 SIG and 9mm Luger. Okay. Loaded. Single action is nice when you got gloves this thick on, so I think this will work out pretty well. We're at about, from this distance, 15 yards. Couldn't get a reset. All right, lock open on empty. We'll go ahead and check out the target just to give you that reference of accuracy, which wasn't great, but the gloves don't help. And the cold and wearing a face mask doesn't really help either. But we did get all the shots within the 6-inch pasty target. So good enough for me wearing gloves like this and in negative temperatures like I'm in. Let's try out 357 SIG next. Now we'll convert 40 Smith & Wesson over to 357 SIG. So first we're going to go ahead and field strip it. As you can see, that's the 40 Smith & Wesson barrel in there. Take out our recoil assembly, drop the barrel out. And now all we have to do for 357 SIG is drop in a 357 SIG barrel, which you can see this one's pretty beat up and old, but still good to go. Let's drop it right in there. And then we're going to take our recoil assembly, and you can use the exact same recoil spring from 40 Smith & Wesson as you can 357 SIG. They're the same exact spring. So that works out very well. It's very easy to do. And now we have a pistol that can shoot 357 SIG. Not to mention, the magazines are also the same. And this magazine, as you can see, is actually marked 357 and 40 Smith & Wesson. So same magazines and everything, just needs a different barrel. Super easy to do. And now let's take it out to the range and try it out. All right, so now we've got 357 SIG loaded up, and we're gonna test it out the same way we did before. I don't think there'll be any issues because all I had to swap is the barrel, recoil spring assembly, and everything else is the same. Let's give it a shot, see how it goes. Same distance, same target. And single action once again for our gloves. Good times. All right, lock open on empty. Good to go there, reliable just as well. Obviously a little more kick than 40, but at the same time, I actually like the impulse you get from 357 SIG in comparison to 40 Smith & Wesson. So let's go ahead and check out the target just to see if we're in the same ballpark at least. You look here, all the shots dropped way lower. So that's the difference of the sights on the SIG pistols. If you get a SIG that's in 40 Smith & Wesson, your sights are going to be calibrated for that. And obviously you can see the 357 SIG rounds impacted much lower. So that is something you'll have to accommodate for if you are going to be switching between calibers. But it is something that you can do, so there's still a benefit there. I would just say it's something you'd have to definitely account for. So let's try out 9mm Luger. All right, now we'll go from 357 SIG to 9mm Luger. We'll go ahead and field strip it once again. Okay, I'm gonna drop out the recoil assembly here, pull out the barrel. And then what we need for this setup is the 9mm conversion barrel. This is from EFK Fire Dragon, and this one's fluted. And as you can see on the other side here, actually has some labeling to let you know that this is for a P226. It's a 9mm conversion barrel, so you know you're good to go. Go ahead and drop that in. Okay, and then with the recoil spring, we're gonna have to change that out to a 9mm recoil spring to get better reliability out of the system. So go ahead and install that on the guide rod. Reinstall that here in the slide. Slide back on the frame. And now we're ready to go when it comes to shooting 9mm Luger out of this pistol. The other thing you want to do is use a 9mm designated magazine. And that's what I have right here. This is from Metgar, who is an OEM manufacturer of magazines for SIG Sauer. And this one's actually labeled right here on the side, MG P226-9. So this is an 18-round flush fit magazine, which is really good for capacity. And we're all set to shoot 9mm. So let's take it out to the range, test out the reliability and the accuracy, and see how it goes. All right, so now we have the EFK Fire Dragon 9mm conversion barrel, which is required to take a 40 to a 9mm. And of course, I'm using a Metgar 18-round magazine. So this works very well, at least so far in my experience. It gives you 18 rounds flush fit as compared to the 12 you get with the 40 Smith & Wesson and 357 SIG, and 9mm in this pistol is much more pleasant to shoot. Not to mention, I did have to replace the recoil spring with a 9mm recoil spring, which I got directly from SIG Sauer. So we're gonna go ahead and test this out because this is the barrel that's gonna be the most finicky, being a conversion barrel and everything else. But so far it's been pretty reliable. And I think that in general, just having it as a backup plan makes a little bit of that additional reliability risk more worth it. So go ahead, load it up, and Same target. Let's see, are we gonna go low again, like 357 SIG, or are we gonna go right where 40 Smith & Wesson went? You let me know in the comments down below. Having a hard time getting a reset. The glove was really in there that time. Okay, I think I was riding the slide release, which is kind of a problem I have with the Legacy P series pistols from SIG Sauer. So we are open on empty now, and if I wasn't riding that slide release right there with my glove, it probably would have been fine. So let's go ahead and check the target just to kind of see where those 9mm rounds are impacting. But it looks like they're a little high compared to the 40, but much more in line. So as you can see, we have a lot of these impacts right here. This is all the 9mm, and we had 18 rounds of 9mm in there. So a little higher than the target with the 40. By the way, yes, still wearing gigantic gloves, still extremely cold. Still had to work on the reset with my trigger finger with that glove on. But regardless, 9mm is a lot more in line, at least from my point of view, with the 40 in the sense of where it's hitting the target than 357 SIG, which was much lower. So those are good considerations to keep in mind in case you are going to convert a singular pistol like this 226 from 40 Smith & Wesson to 357 SIG and 9mm Luger. Now that I am frozen to the core, let's get back into the workshop and just have some final thoughts about this whole process. All right, now that you've seen how easy it is to switch between those cartridges, not to mention the difference in accuracy and reliability still looking pretty good, what are some of the potential issues you can have by using a 9mm conversion barrel? Well, first and foremost, you have to think about some of the small parts in the gun, specifically the extractor and the ejector. They were designed with 40 Smith & Wesson or 357 SIG in mind, and of course, the cases on those cartridges are larger than that of 9mm Luger. So those parts aren't going to line up optimally for 9mm Luger, which could cause you some issues down the road, including increased parts wear and potential reliability issues. So if you're using a 9mm conversion barrel, one of the best benefits of that is being able to get on the range and train with cheaper ammo and shoot more of it, while also having access to additional ammunition types in case there ever is a shortage, but you're also sacrificing a little bit of reliability and enhancing your parts wear, which means that things are going to fail sooner than they would have otherwise. Now, a lot of people have a lot of very good luck using 9mm conversion barrels, but this is something to notate. And of course, in order to enhance the reliability, you definitely want to use that designated 9mm magazine with the 9mm conversion barrel. But even so, if I was going to have this pistol converted to 9mm, I wouldn't necessarily choose it to be a concealed carry or a duty pistol. And that's just because you're not setting it up to be optimal when it comes to reliability. And in those situations, which are self-defense related, you would want to make sure that you have a pistol that is at the top of its game for being as reliable as humanly possible. So in that scenario, I would carry it in its native 40 Smith & Wesson or 357 SIG. But if you only had 9mm and things got really bad, well, at least you still have that option. So this is what I've done in order to have a gun that can shoot all 3 cartridges, make sure it's ammo shortage proof during any other situation we might run into in the future, and just allows me to have fun with a really nice legacy style pistol such as the P226. what pistol do you have where you've done these conversions? And of course, you can also even add .22 long rifle as a conversion ammunition type for this particular gun. But that requires an entirely new slide as well, which is why I didn't include it in this conversation. Not to mention, it's generally not what people are using for self-defense, and that's exactly what we're concerned about when it comes to carrying something like a P226. So I just wanted to go ahead and mention that, but there's a lot of other conversion types out there you can do to all kinds of different guns, and I'd love to hear about them down below. If you do want to support the channel, the easiest way to do that is to hit subscribe as well as the like button, because, you know, that's what you're supposed to do here on YouTube. And anything else you need from me at all, you can go to magicprepper.com. And besides that, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.